Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. We're getting ready to record. We actually got sun today in California, up here in the Bay Area.
It's been a rainy week and a half, really, overall in California.
We're a little late getting this episode out, and I think the last 5 minutes are getting thrown on my lap.
Yep, that's true. The hour it took to get ready was me, but then
2 straight weeks of very labor-intensive episodes.
Yeah, so speaking of which, today we are going to talk about our favorite free agent targets. We're also going to talk a little bit about some actual Packers-related news, which a little late in the cycle for coaching-related news, but don't worry, the Green Bay's always going to keep you on your toes with the coaches, apparently. So we're going to talk about, obviously, Bisaccia stepping away. In case you missed that big piece of news, we'll talk about that for a little while. And then we each have our 4 favorite free agent targets. Not, in my opinion, the best free agent class that I've ever seen, but you did a lot of awesome work, essentially creating composite scores for every position, and you'll talk a little bit about that when we get to talking about the free agents. Before we get to any of that, though, just wanted to pitch a couple of things. If you like what you hear, subscribe, whether that's Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Leave a comment, leave a review, tell a friend, tell a stranger. We'll be doing an episode every single week for the whole offseason, talking about the draft, talking about free agency, talking about coaching, hiring, and firings. Apparently forever. We're just going to keep talking about the coaching just the entire time. We'll be talking about, the rookie minicamp, offseason, OTAs, minicamp, et cetera. Pretty much just,
Combine's coming up.
Combine's coming up too. Exactly. We'll be talking about that. Who stands out of the combine. And the Packers, have a lot of work to do with this roster. So it's going to be, a lot of fun to talk about as we go through the offseason. Again, follow us on Blue Sky as well at Father Son Packer. If you like what you hear, we'll be, keeping you up to date on the latest Packers related news. Hirings, firings, signings, et cetera, other, NFL related news as we see the Malik Willis number just keeps growing and growing and growing, which, good for Malik. So that's like a big thing going around the NFL news.
Yeah, I'm seeing 30s. Let's come on, guys, keep getting it up.
40. Yeah,
let's get into the 40s.
Good for Malik. Before we get to any of that, though, like I mentioned, let's start talking about this Rich Bisaccia news because, kind of out of nowhere the other day, a handful of days ago now, Rich Bisaccia, I believe the quote was steps down as special teams coordinator. So it's not a retirement. He is just stepping away from the team. Now, hopefully it's nothing in terms of like a personal issue or like he's dealing with anything health related. Obviously, hope everything's okay with him. But talking about this through the lens of, the Packers, I think so. Let's give our quick thoughts. What did you think when you saw the Bisaccia news? Like, what was your first reaction?
My first reaction was, we could get even worse.
That's true. But I will say, when I saw it, I was like, okay, good. Because I did not want to ride it. Because you and I were talking about this the other day. When you think about it, the Packers last year we were 9-7-1 in the regular season, then 0-1 in the playoffs, so 9-8-1. And then if you take one of those losses off for the Week 18 Vikings game when we didn't, essentially just threw that game, didn't matter. Yeah. So over the course of the year, we had 7 losses that really counted, taking out that Vikings one and adding in the playoff one, and 1 tie. And when you go through those losses and ties, you get the Browns game where you get a game-winning field goal blocked, and so special teams cost you the game because you can't block for a field goal for some reason. Then you have the Cowboys game where you get an extra point blocked and returned, and that kind of swings momentum of the game in a game you tied.
3-point swing.
So special teams loses you the game there. You have the first Bears loss, or second Bears game, first Bears loss, where you cannot field an onside kick for some reason. Who knows why. And then you have the Bears playoff game where you leave 7 points on the field because of special teams, and you also give up a bunch of huge punt returns, which that was fun too. So you could say of the 8 losses and ties that the Packers had last year, besides that Vikings one, half of them were because of special teams. And so if half the games that you're dropping are because of your special teams unit, which is only out on the field for like 12, 14 plays a game, that you really do need to make a change. And so I was happy that Bisaccia, obviously, hopefully everything's okay with him, but I was happy that, he made the decision for Green Bay because I guess the Packers weren't going to make that decision. So that's good. I will say it definitely could get worse. And the fact that it happened this late is not good because there have been 11 special teams coordinators hired in the NFL so far. So we're getting the 12th pick. We are getting the dead last pick.
We do have to think a little bit out of the box. I think a lot of it's been coordinators bouncing around from one team to another and just shuffling the chairs on the deck, as it were.
But we are getting whoever no one else wanted. We are getting the guy that no one else wanted is what we're going to be getting.
We have experience with, we thought we had a terrible special teams.
Yes.
And it got much worse. It got much, much worse, actually. We didn't realize that there was something to far Drayton, below dead last.
Because, we had Sean Menenga for
but there's also
Matt LaFleur's first year with Green Bay, and he was really bad. And then we hired his assistant, Mo Drayton, who was somehow even worse. And then Bisaccia has been bad. I was telling you, it was like, I think the lows for Bisaccia were just as low, like just losing you games, like multiple games a year. His units were losing you, like just completely losing the game. Didn't know how to manage kickers. Just wanted Anders Carlson for no reason other than he had coached Daniel Carlson before. It felt like that was like the only possible connection was that he had recruited him in high school coming into Auburn and then had coached his brother, and he was like, Anders cool. Anders cool. They'll lose you a playoff game, but that's fine. And I can't say anything because then McManus loses you a playoff game too. So, but so it did feel like he had no hold on the kickers. Yeah, random. We were one of the most penalized special teams units in the league every year with Bisaccia, routinely like bottom third of the league. It was all bad.
Yeah, I think this last year we might have been 10th.
Yeah,
and
repeatedly, like back when other teams were just kicking it into the end zone every single time, he just wouldn't kick it in the end zone and make us nothing that Bisaccia did made any sense. So I'm glad that there's going to be a change there, but it's true it could get worse. And the fact that
but I am hoping that it's going to be better. They'll find somebody who's up and coming, has some ideas, because I think we weren't trying out really to take advantage of the new rules. It seemed like we were really late to adopt.
Yeah, because
all the time.
I agree, and that's why I'm happy that we're making a change. And I would still say, like, man, him stepping away this late is really putting us in a tough spot, though. Because, like, if it's not like for a personal reason or a health related reason, him taking this long to step away from the team is really screwing us over. Like, it's really screwing us over.
I have heard some speculation about the timing because they
started the 2026 meetings this past week, and then
like just days before he decided to step down.
Yeah, and then he decided to step, and it's like it had been January 10th, I believe, was when we got knocked out of the playoffs. It had been over 30 days since that happened, and he decided, and it's like, okay, you waited for every other special teams coordinator job to get filled, and then you decide to step away is really tough. Because you're right, it was right when the 2026 meetings to start planning for the new year apparently happened, and then he decided to step away. You wonder what was said in those meetings. You wonder what happened in those meetings that made him want to step away.
It's like
unclear.
What, you mean you're not going to give me any good players on special teams anymore?
I'm tired of hearing that narrative because we have invested plenty in special teams, in my opinion.
But maybe they're like, we're going to bring any of them back.
We're paying a punter good money. We're paying a long snapper good money. We're paying a kicker good money. We're bringing in guys like Neiman and Rochelle in previous years, and Nixon when they first signed him. I know now he's a starting corner, but when we first signed him, it was as a special teamer. Bringing in Rudy Ford, bringing in just like guy after guy, like we are bringing in, like having Bo Melton on the roster, bringing in Zane Anderson, bringing in Christian Welch, drafting Savion Williams. I'm convinced drafting Savion Williams was in large part like they thought of him as a returner. Like I know a lot of people are like, oh, you got to go get a returner. That's what I think the Savion Williams pick was. And I know they talk about like, oh, we see him as a receiver, like a real receiver. It's like, I think a lot of that was you liked him with the ball in his hands as a returner, and you saw him as like a Cordero Patterson.
Right. Everybody would say he's a Cordero Patterson, but I do, think that there's something about that meeting, but who knows what it was.
Yeah, I mean, the timing for like him stepping away, like right as the 2026 meeting started, does kind of feel like it couldn't just be it could just be a coincidence, but it feels unlikely. But I don't think we're ever going to know. So, it is what it is. Let's start talking, though, because there has been a bit of news reported by Bill Huber of SI about the coaches that the Packers have been looking at so far. We have at least 4 candidates reported. The first, Tom McMahon, He's been a special teams coordinator since 2009 with stops with the Rams, Chiefs, Colts, Broncos, and Raiders. So 2009 to 2011 with the Rams as special teams coordinator. 2012, Kansas City special teams coordinator. 2013 to 2017, Indianapolis special teams coordinator. 2018 to 2021, Denver special teams coordinator. And now I'll start giving you some of the ranks. He was 31st, 24th, 24th, and 30th with Denver. And then Vegas from 22 to 25, 12th, 13th, 17th, 28th. So not great this past year. But yeah, some above average finishes there is not bad. So he's one option.
Yeah, I feel like that last year with the Raiders, like that team was kind of a disaster.
That team was kind of a disaster. Yeah, but the other 3 years pretty good.
Forgiveness on that last one with the Raiders.
And at least, did well enough to be held over from the previous staff as well. So seems like some people think well of him. Another candidate, Cameron Acord, I believe it is, former Patriots special teams coordinator from 2020 to 2023 and Giants assistant special teams coordinator 24-25. His numbers are, I think, not as impressive so New England went first, then 18th, 32nd, 28th. And so you're wondering, it's like, okay, like, so as the like vestiges of the previous special teams coordinator kind of left, it just went straight downhill for him. And then with the Giants as the assistant, they were 22nd and 23rd. So not exactly super inspiring.
Yeah. I a lot of what I see when I was going through all these numbers, I was like, man, special teams are volatile.
They are volatile unless you're the Packers. We're very consistent.
I'll tell you, that'd be great.
Very
It's like I was telling you about this old Charlie Brown line. You know Charlie Brown, I think I was talking to him. You win some, you lose some. Really? That would be great.
That'd be great, yeah. We are, high precision, low accuracy. Is what we're a lot of bias. We are really good at clustering it at like the 30. Yeah, we're really good at that. Some other candidates. Kyle Wilbur, former special teams quality control coach to Bisaccia in Vegas, has played special teams in the pros. And then Sam Sewell, who's been a running backs and special teams coach in college and was the assistant special teams coach in Arizona the last 3 years, who was retained by Mike LaFleur as the assistant special teams coordinator. 11th, 18th, 30th the last 3 years. So that's something.
Yeah, as the assistant.
Yeah, as the assistant. So he was not the special teams coordinator for those. So they take with those numbers, he's not exactly have his like full control of it, but something to just kind of, it's really the only numbers we can really, keep track of. So these are by DVOA, by the way. Yeah. Huber also mentioned Seahawks special teams assistant Devin Fitzsimmons. This is more speculation. There's not like official reporting. He had been with Arizona from 21 to 22, where they ranked 20th each year. Carolina in 2023, where they ranked 23rd, and then Seattle the last 2 years, where they ranked 10th and 2nd. So, it'd be nice to like at least pick the brain of the Seattle special teams, brain trust, because they were so good at special teams last year, and it was a big reason that they were able to, win the Super Bowl and win the, NFC Championship game. Was like just they were just completely sound. Michael Dixon could have won. They said they had two specialists who could have won Super Bowl MVP, in my opinion. So like you could be like, hey, because Dixon pinned, I think, them inside the 10.
Was so good.
He pinned them inside the 10 like 3 different times, and then Myers set the record for most field goals made in a Super Bowl. So you could argue like, all right, well, if your special teams is really like resting on the shoulders of those two, and then Rashid Shaheed as like one of the best returners in the league, like the rest of the guys were also doing their job, obviously, but like how much would that translate when you don't have that like level of talent in the special teams room? I think it's a fair question. Whelan's good, yeah, but he's not as good as Dixon. But he's good. He's good, just not quite as good as Dixon. Our kicker is not as good as Myers. I'll tell you that right now. And our returner is not as good as Shaheed. Also, not as good.
We don't even know who our punt returner is ever. Any game.
That's fair.
It's just a mystery.
It's just whoever goes back out there first.
Send me a coach.
It's going to be Jaden Reed today, I guess. Well, we're going to watch Matthew Golden spin in a circle and get just absolutely speared through the chest.
Is that the most useless spin move you've ever seen?
I can't believe he got back up so quickly. I would have become one with the turf. That would have been really bad. But yeah, so those are the main candidates. I think it was time for a change, so I'm okay with this. It definitely could get worse. The fact that we're hiring so late in the cycle is also not ideal, given the fact that, the combine's about to start. Like scouting processes, free agency processes are going. And this is just like another thing for all, like, not only is it like going to be a late ad in terms of getting a special teams guy in here to like take a look at these guys and make decisions on specialists and make decisions on rosterable players. It's also just another thing for like LaFleur and the coaching staff and the front office to deal with right now. So like the timing is terrible. The timing is like god awful. But I do think it will hopefully, the floor is lower, but I think we should try to at least be average at special teams, and we should make changes until that happens, I guess is my thought.
Yeah, I think this idea is like, don't be afraid to get better.
Yeah, because it hasn't been good enough, and you can say like, oh, like they're not investing enough in, like they're good at the stuff. Are they good at the stuff that they care about? I mean, they're giving up big punt returns in playoff games, and you can say, oh, they don't have their gunners. Like, well, it's the Mike Tomlin things. A lot of coaches seem to be scared of coaching. That's what the money is for. You're supposed to make these players better. You can't just, I can put together a 20th ranked special teams if I have 2 starting caliber gunners and I'm paying the most, like I'm paying a punter and I'm paying a long snapper and I have like 5 more roster spots. Like, no, that's not, then what's the point? I could get some guy from Kmart to come do that. Like, no, I was fine with the Bisaccia area coming to an end. If he was going to step away, I would have liked for it to have been earlier so that we could have a full, like, a regular hiring process, but it is what it is. Any final thoughts on Bisaccia moving on? I think it's for the best, honestly. That's kind of my final take. Obviously, could be worse, but I think hopefully it will be better.
Yeah, it was a little, I had already settled into the mode of, okay, he's coming back. And so I was a little caught off guard, actually, even though I thought there was a chance earlier in the offseason.
I mean, I think it sounds like Matt LaFleur was too, based on like some reporting, was that this was not expected, and especially based on Gutekunst's presser like a few weeks ago, where he was talking about, how much Bisaccia meant to the team. I can't imagine anyone within 1265 knew that this was coming.
No, because they should have already been looking, but if they were, would we have heard? If the Packers are actually interviewing people, maybe somebody would know.
I think we would have known. I think if this was not a last second decision, Bisaccia would have stepped away a while ago. And again, hopefully everything's okay with him, and this isn't like related to any kind of family thing or health thing, and that everything's fine with him. But anyway, I guess let's move on to talking about this free agency class and the 4 players that we've each highlighted. My big takeaway from this exercise is that it's a pretty weak free agent class, in my opinion, at least at the spots where Green Bay needs help. I mostly looked at like O-line and corner were the 2 that I looked at the most, I would say. Maybe a little bit of D-line as well. I don't want to spoil anything. But Dad, do you want to talk about the process you went through in terms of setting up essentially composite grades for each available free agent, looking at, for O-line, their run blocking, their pass blocking, for D-line, their, run stopping, their pass rush stuff, looking at for the corners, their coverage and their tackling. Do you want to talk a little bit about like what went into that?
Yeah, so the first thing I'll say is that for every stat I used, stat measurement, I rescaled them all so that the best player in that position group, anybody with more than 100 snaps, got a grade of 100%, and all the lower grades kind of scaled relative to that. Because in order to combine the different metrics, you can't have something that's measured in like 2 seconds and then something that's like a 90. So you needed a way to scale them all similarly. So I made them all as basically the percent of the best is how they were scaled. I thought about just giving it a straight rank, 1 to whatever, 120, but that doesn't capture if somebody's like much better or much worse than everybody else, if there's a gap. So that way I got every stat, same scale, so I could add them together so they all carry equal weight in the total. Or if you wanted to, you could then adjust the weighting by increasing or decreasing how much. And one thing I thought about this, like long term, it could do, if we want to do a large scale like regression analysis of every trait to long term,
how important it actually ended up mattering.
Then you could actually tweak them. Okay, we're gonna take 90% of this one and 10% of this one and double this one. For the ones
I think for corner that would be really interesting because corner is so volatile year to year, and that's why I was hesitant to include so I think the main takeaway here because generally the consensus on free agency is you want to fill needs in free agency, so when you get to the draft, you can just draft best player available and you don't feel like you have to reach at certain positions. Now, I think the Packers are in kind of a spot where we have a lot of needs. So it might be hard to fill all of those, especially in a weak free agency class, because you want to kind of balance that. Because a lot of times in free agency, you end up giving like either like great money to good players or good money to average players. And sometimes you'll get lucky and it'll like work out where you end up like getting a deal like Zadarius Smith or Adrian Amos. Those were both like super good deals. And like those sometimes happen. But I think as teams get kind of a little bit more cap conscious and like understand like how they can fiddle with stuff more, fewer and fewer good players are making it to free agency every year. Like I don't think that's going to happen as much anymore. I think the McKinney and Saquon making it to free agency
that's
like 2 years ago,
the Giants are incompetent.
Yeah,
everybody else
like
is already on the trade of keeping their good players.
Well, the counter argument is like there are always going to be incompetent franchises, and so like teams are going to let good players walk every once in a while. But I do think because like people are talking about like, oh, you know, the best players available in free agency this year is like, oh, Kyle Pitts like might be available. He's going to get franchise tagged. Alec Pierce, he's probably going to get franchise tagged. Like, and like you go down the list. Maybe Pierce doesn't get franchise tag, but it sounds like the Colts are very serious about retaining
George
him,
Pickens
so he might not even
franchise tag.
Pickens is going to get franchise tag, exactly.
So and there may be some players that we talk about today that by the time free agency rolls around, they've already re-signed with their team.
Linderbaum, I think, is going to end up going back to the Ravens. A lot of online Packers people are like, "Oh, go get Linderbaum." Number one, I think you'd have to pay him a ridiculous amount, and I think you'd probably be overpaying. Like, I think he's good, but not great. And I would be shocked if the Ravens just let him leave because they're in a win now window. Why would you let your starting center leave when you already have like questions about your interior O-line? I don't know if that really tracks to me. But we each have 4 players that we decided to highlight. You might have cheated and gone with 5. I can't remember.
There might be a 5th one there, and there might be more.
But
I didn't remember what the number was by the time I was doing it. So I'll just keep going.
I like this guy too. I'll throw him in a little extra.
I'll just do a little extra
supplementary. But so a lot of it was based on looking at our composite grades. I also looked at in terms of, you know, their health and their age. I kind of did it. I don't know about you. I did a little bit what I think the Packers should do and what I think they will do. Like I didn't include anyone who was over 30 or really over 28. I don't think, because I just would be surprised if Green Bay did that because they just don't generally. It's like pretty rare when they
put
do
in a wish list. So guys guys I wish they would get, and I don't have much optimism that they will.
The age,
but I think it's good to put that information out there as well.
Well, who's the first person you had that you wanted the Packers to keep an eye on in free agency and possibly bring in?
And this is somebody that a lot of people have mentioned up, and that's Calais Campbell.
Yeah. So that was what I was going to say.
Way outside of Green Bay's age norm.
How old is he again? 39?
39 point something.
That was what I was going to say. Is because I was mentioning the age thing and how they don't usually break that threshold because and Goodikins said something in his presser. They asked him like, "Do you just like not like signing old people?" He's like, "Well, usually we like to sign multi-year contracts, and we like if you're older, you're just not going to get a multi-year contract. It's just how it is. It's not necessarily, but I do think they sometimes will break the age thing for players that are truly special, like Julius Peppers. Now, I'm not saying Calais Campbell is Julius Peppers level, but he's like one tier down from that. And he's been a very productive player in the league for a long time. And I mean, he had a really good year last year with Arizona. And it's not like he's slowing down all that much. And I mean, I think we're so desperate for interior defensive line help that I think a 1-year deal there would make like a ton of sense. But what drew you to him?
Yeah, basically his production this past year. He's still going strong. He's 28th in the pass rush grade that I made, which includes like 11 different stats. Quick pressure rate,
quick pressure rate,
and 62nd in run D out of 169 qualifiers. So his run D is okay. I mean, it's not great, but
sure. Better than the guys that we have out there right now.
Yeah, so it's kind of on board. The only one I think who is better run defender than him was Wyatt, actually, for D tackles. And I think he was better in pass rush than any of our D tackles. He still has plenty of juice. He was 4th among all qualifying defensive tackles in quick QB pressure rate.
Yeah. It's kind of a miracle that he's able to still move this fast.
The thing that you think that you would maybe lose as you're getting older is the speed, but he's still getting to the quarterback quickly at one of the best rates in the league.
Yeah.
So he's not a run stuffing like nose tackle kind of guy, which we also need.
Yeah,
but he's like he's 299 or something. You know,
he's like almost $3 bills. Yeah,
about three bills. But can do some everything.
Yeah. And veteran presence, another leader in the locker room. you just need. I just think you need some more impact players along the trenches and on both sides of the ball. Now, I think part of the reason Calais Campbell is such like a name that we want the Packers to target is maybe a testament to the rest of the defensive line free agent class just being kind of weak. And so, like, yeah, ideally you'd like to sign like a guy like this who's 27 years old and not 39 years old. But the thing is, if you had a guy coming off a year like Calais Campbell had, where he was very productive as a pass rusher, who is well respected in locker room, who is a leader, and who was 27 years old, he wouldn't be a free agent. And so the reason that he's available is because he is older. And so that's just kind of like, if you were to not look at that part and look at everything else, he'd be like the perfect, like he'd be getting a ton of money.
Right.
But he's old.
Right now he's projected to get about 11 million. So if he was like 30 or 28, he'd be getting
the Brinks truck
30
backed
million.
up for him. Exactly. And so the reason he's available to Green Bay is because of the age. And so that's kind of, I think, something you just have to keep in mind.
And he played with
yes, and he's played for Gannon before.
Gannon last year.
Exactly. So
I
there's some
could
familiarity
see
there as well.
Maybe like a 2-year contract. Because
do you think you can give him 2? Is he 40 years old the next year?
Well, it depends on what you need to get it. It could be like two that's really one.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I mean, if that got him in the door,
but there are not very many players you can find who are like, not like if they're good in pass rush and they're available. If they're good in the pass rush, they're a liability against the run, and vice versa. They're decent against the run and offer no pass rush juice.
Well, that kind of brings me to my next guy, who is a good pass rusher, but leaves a little bit to be desired, as a run stuffer. And that's Logan Hall, who is on the younger side. He's only 25. He'll be 26 soon, though. But he's an interior defensive lineman who's been with Tampa the last few years. He's a bit undersized. He's tall. He's 6'6", but only 283. Spent his last 4 years with Tampa, like I said, really specializes as a pass rusher. He was 45th in our pass rush metric, 39th with like a snap count minimum. And that was out of 160?
169.
169. So, upper, was it fifth? Like up top 20% in terms of pass rush amongst interior defensive linemen. A lot of burst. And he's coming off his best year, which is kind of like the type of player that sometimes Green Bay likes to target in terms of, hey, he'll be a bit discounted because he's only really had, one good year, but maybe that's the start of something new. And that's worked out for them before with a guy like Zadarius Smith. Now it has like not worked out for them before with a guy like Aaron Banks, where it's like, okay, played well in a contract year and now that's not growing great. But also, who knows? Aaron Banks might have been injured last year. Maybe he'll play better this coming year. We can hope at least. But for Hall, I just think that he would bring a lot more pass rush juice to a unit that desperately needs it. We saw once Wyatt went out, it's like, okay, none of these guys can get to the passer. Like even guys who I thought were playing decent, like Wooden, can't really get to the passer. Brooks can't really get to the passer. Brinson had some flashes, but he's still like he was a 6th round rookie. So it's like, I don't know how much you can expect from him in year 2. We've seen guys take a step back in year 2. I mean, Carl Brooks had his best year as a rookie and then never really replicated that. So that could happen with Brinson. I just don't think you want to rely on him as your second best interior pass rusher. And obviously you can kick Van Ness inside. You can kick Micah inside once he's back. But I just think it'd be nice to have another guy there to be able to rush the passer. Now, he might end up being more expensive than what you'd want for that type of player. He's projected to get like $8 million per spot track a year, that is. So maybe they don't want to spend that much money on him. And obviously, I usually find those spot track estimates to be a bit like lowballing it, and they usually get bid up a little higher than that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up, getting above 10 million a year. But I think it would be a, solid investment in a young ascending player. He's still only going to be 26 years old, who's shown an ability to rush the passer. And that's just something that I think the defensive line really needs right now, because they're just sorely lacking it outside of Wyatt. Wyatt's like the only guy who can rush the passer. And Wyatt's also in the last year of his deal.
Yeah, we need to have, a lot of people talk about we need kind of a run stuffing nose tackle, but we need one other.
We need good players. We need players who can do something along the defensive line. Because that's the thing is people are talking about, you need a run stuffer. I was like, honestly, I thought the run defense was better than the pass rush for major chunks of last year, like along the defensive line. And I get a lot of that was like because the linebackers and safeties were playing really well and like covering for the D line. And I get that also with Gannon coming in, you have a different scheme. And so you need more of a run stuffer. Like you're going to be doing more 2-gapping stuff. But I still think that you just need more juice up front in the pass rush department. Because I mean, last year when Micah went out, we couldn't get any pressure at all.
Yeah, and Logan Hall is above average in both like time to sack and time to pressure numbers. So there could be something there. And having a kind of a pass rush specialist add some juice there could be something we could use. And he's just not going to give you. You might not want him in rundowns.
Yeah, I don't think he's a liability, but it's just because he's lighter. I just don't think. Yeah, but yeah, who's the next player you had?
So I'm going to give another defensive tackle. So it was hard looking through to find players who are like good enough.
So many of these defensive tackles are like old, really old. Because I was looking, how old is Rankins? Like, oh man, he's like 34 now. It's like, how old is Sebastian Joseph Day? Man, he's like in his late 30s. Like, you just go down the list, all these free agents. I mean, guys who have like had good careers and like are playing decent football years. Still. Exactly. I mean, I was looking at John Franklin Myers. He's almost 30. I really gave some serious thought to him.
You look at actually liked, but I did go.
Dean Lowry's a free agent. I don't know if that does anything for you. But sorry, who'd you have?
So I went try to get somebody who's a little bit younger. Roy Lopez. He's 28 and a half on his own.
Was it the Lions last year, right?
Yes, I think that's right.
Yeah,
he's 312 pounds. So a little bit projected to get $6.5 million about. And he's kind of decent enough in both 85th out of the 169 in pass rush and 58th in the run defense score. His run D rank is better than every Green Bay defensive tackle except for Wyatt, and he's better in pass rush grade than everybody except for Wyatt and Brinson. Brinson actually had a decent pass rush grade, but not good against the run.
Yeah.
So he's a guy who could be. You might get more than you have out of him than you have to pay. But
and also experience playing under Gannon as well. Before he's with the Lions, he had been with the Cardinals, so there's some familiarity there as well. You know, I think there's something there because I think he is like a guy who can really help you with the run, but he's not like he's not just like a one trick pony. Like he can do a couple other things.
Yeah, he's doesn't he's not like at the bottom in pass rush, which you get sometimes with guys who are the run defenders who don't give you much at all against the pass.
I wouldn't be mad at that at all. I think he could totally, I actually like him more than I like Hall, but you beat me to it.
Yeah, but another guy, I just got to throw this name out there without a whole lot of is Chris or Kairos Tonga.
Kairos Tonga, yeah.
Kairos Tonga is another possibility.
He's also I think even more of like a run stuffing type. I mean, he'd been with the Patriots last year. He's almost 30, and that's why I didn't have him on my list, just because I don't think Green Bay would do that. I just think they don't like paying guys who are that old, but I wouldn't mind him. Like, if you covered up the age thing, I think he'd be a perfect fit. And he also, I believe, has experience with Gannon as well.
Yeah, just throwing an extra name out there. I'm going to be over my limit of 4.
Yeah, you're going to be far over your limit of 4. But what was I going to say? The next player that I had, I went to the corner room, and that was Cordell Flott. I was looking at him because it's interesting because for a guy coming off his first contract, he's really young. He's only 24 years old. 6'1", 175 corner, been playing with the Giants the last handful of years. Little under 10 million projected, so you'd probably actually have to spend a little bit for him. But he's got a lot of experience at outside corner. He's played a little bit one season he played mostly in the slot, and then the other 3 seasons he mostly played outside. So mostly an outside corner. I think intriguing given his age. He is so young. He's 10th in our combined coverage metric this past year, so he was really good in coverage this past year for the Giants. He's not
terrible against the run either.
Not terrible. Not amazing.
Sort of middle of the package.
I think when you watch him, he is like a really high effort tackler, and has good physicality. He's just small. Like that's like the drawback. He's just not. I mean, he's only 6'1", 175. He's just light.
I mean that's why when I had guys I thought were interesting in terms of the rankings, I started looking up their, especially for the corners, their sizes, and I came to Flott. It's like
he's just small. That's the downside. But I think he does still He tries to
But he's
tackle. He
tall,
brings
too.
good
He's
physicality.
really skinny.
He's got good length. I will say, like, my big takeaway from watching Seattle win the Super Bowl was just that tackling for your corners is really important. And that would be a question mark with Flott just because of his size. But I think watching him, the physicality is there, the effort is there, and I think it's worth taking a shot on him, especially given his age. Like, I think his best football's in front of him, as Gutekunst, that felt like a Gutekunst quote. But I think that he's a guy who should be on Green Bay's radar because, like I said, I don't know about investing all that much in corner, and if he gets to be, above a certain, AAV, I probably wouldn't want to sign him. But in terms of, trying to invest low on a guy who's young and probably going to improve the next few years, I think Flott's a good bet.
His tactics is a lot better than Carrington Valentine's.
Low
So
bar,
here's
okay.
here's a kind of a quick reality check on the number grade that got spit out by just combining all these numbers. Carrington Valentine was the worst run defender among all corners who had at least 100 run defending snaps.
That tracks.
So
that
check,
matches the eye test. Yeah, that's about what we saw on
if it
film.
matches the eye test.
No, yeah, that
I'm
tracks.
throwing some shade, but
who did you have any other corners on your
I
list?
have a corner, and so I was digging around to try to find, as I went with Kindle Vildor.
Yeah, he's been around. He played for the Lions for a few years. He's kind of up and down a little bit, but he had a good year this past year.
28.2. He's not expected to make much. I mean, they're saying only 1.6 million, but that seems low for anybody.
And that was the thing. Gutekunst said he liked the starting corners. He just felt the depth was, like really lacking. And so it's possible they maybe just sign a couple of guys to low level contracts to like back up and like compete.
Yeah, he's a little small, but he's 189, so he's almost 190, 5'11". Played for Tampa last year. Was 25th in coverage grade and 43rd in the run score. But that run score, he had just didn't qualify. But if he had a few more snaps, he would have been 43rd out of was it 112 players for the run. So he actually had more players who qualified as corners in the coverage grade than the run grade because they had more corners getting enough snaps and coverage snaps than run snaps. But he did decent in both, actually. At 100 and pretty much an outside corner, 158 snaps a corner, only 3 in the slot. So I feel like that's what we need. And his missed tackle rate is only 5.9%, better than Hobbs and Bullard and Valentine's is like 22. Similar to Nixon, who's like 5.6, 5.7% missed tackle rate.
And I do think that was a big takeaway. Like I said, watching Seattle is the corner's got to be able to tackle. And like that just makes such a huge difference on defense.
Yeah, so he's he's one of those guys who's done some good things on a smaller number of snaps.
Yeah, I don't know if you want him to be your starter, but
he might be a good add as somebody who could actually give you more than you're paying for.
Yeah, 100%. My next one is also kind of more of a depth piece, more backup piece. And I'm just going to go with both of mine back to back because they are pretty similar. I think we need to fix the O-line with draft picks as well, but the depth is just so bad that I think we need to take a couple shots at some depth guys. So this is the one thing. These guys are both former Niners. They're both coming off the Niners last year. And we've been burned by Banks. And I do think that signing former Niners O-linemen is a bit of a risky proposition because Shanahan makes them look better than they are. And then they go to different teams and they aren't as good. And we just saw with Banks that he's just, I mean, Banks wasn't that good with the Niners either, but both of these players were with the Niners last year. And so you could also spin that as like, hey, they have familiarity with a similar scheme, which is what I'm going to choose to do here. But they're both, I think, more depth guys. Matt Hennessy, 28 years old, center guard, 6'3", 307, only projected to make like $2 million. Played 3.5 years with Atlanta and then the last year and a half with San Francisco. He was 7th amongst qualifying centers in our blocking metric last year and has experience in a similar scheme. Has played some guard, but mostly center. And so I think that would be an interesting idea. He was their backup center last year. And so he has, experience doing some of the wide zone stuff we like to do and doing some of the other, similar like Shanahan, McVay style stuff. And then the other player was this one's tough. Ben Barch as more of like a swing interior guy. 6'6", 315, only 27 years old, only about $2 million projected. Has experience playing a lot of left guard and a lot of right guard for both Jacksonville and San Francisco. Played a little bit of center too. The problem with him though, so he was 20th amongst guards in our blocking metrics, which, that's pretty good. Problem with him is availability. And so I think he'd have to be a backup because he's coming off foot surgery and he's only played 9 total games the last 2 years, which is part of the reason why I think he's like available and also probably would be cheap. If you can get him for cheap, I think it's a decent flyer. Same with Hennessy. I think Hennessy would be brought in, like he's been a backup center in San Francisco. I think he'd be brought in to compete for a starting spot right away, and maybe you could convince him to come like on that promise, be like, hey, like other places you're going to back up here, you might be able to start. And Barch, I think, would have to be a backup just because he's only played 9 games the last 2 years. His body doesn't seem to be able to hold up to a full season, but if he can give you like a handful of games as a backup swing interior guy, because right now, I mean, who's your backup guard? Donovan Jennings? I mean, I don't feel good about that. Like that doesn't feel great at all. Travis Glover hasn't played
Williams
in like a year. John Williams has never played a snap of NFL football. Like we're looking at the depth is really poor. And so I think you just need to backload. And obviously it's not ideal having a guy who's, coming off of injury and hasn't played that much the last 2 years. But when he has played, he's played really well, or like quite well. Really well might be overselling it, but he's played pretty well when he's played. And hopefully a lower snap count where he's not a starter can, help alleviate some of the injury issues, and he'd be able to just give you some snaps. I don't know. That one was a little bit of a stretch. It's like, he played pretty well, but he doesn't play a lot, and he's coming off a major injury. So that one was a little shakier. But I think an idea as like a backup swing interior guy kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think we definitely need depth because we are worried about what's going to happen to the line if we have to put any.
Well, when?
The backup
when? Yeah. It's the NFL. You're going to have to put backup linemen in at some point.
We felt like we had pretty good depth coming into this year, but now we're losing 2 or 3.
Yeah. Essentially, we had we had 7 good O-linemen. We felt like we had 7 O-linemen we felt good about, and we just lost 3. So like now we're down to 4 O-linemen we feel good about.
Math. Yeah.
It's not enough to start. And no backups. So yeah, I think we just need to sign a few depth piece guys, and I like Hennessy and Barch well enough.
Yeah, so I'll go to my O-line. So one possibility, of course, is Ryan, but I don't want to spend too much time. But he was 20. His games only at center, he was 28th in this metric out of, how many was it? It was like about 50. So he was better than he was the rest of the year. But guy I think might be even, more of a bargain. It's a little older though. Austin Schlottman as a center. Yeah. He's 30 years old, 30.2. He's listed at 6'5", 300. He had a 9.7 RAS coming out of college and projected to get only 2.4 million. It's like half of what Ryan's expected to get, who is himself expected to get like a third of what Linderbaum's going to get.
Yeah.
And Linderbaum's grades are like surprisingly similar to
Schlottman's.
Well, no, not as good as Schlottman's, actually. In some metrics, he's kind of like Ryan, though, a little bit better version. He was only 17th, so kind of middle of the pack by our metric. Schlottman was 4th for all centers by the blocking metric I use. And he got some opportunity by the Giants this year, did well, both run and pass blocking. Now, he doesn't have a whole lot of experience and a whole lot of snaps, so you could be falling victim to a small sample size and it doesn't scale up. But if it could be a cheaper way to get a quality starter. So it's like one of his first opportunities to get some time when the Giants starter went out.
The last 4 years he's been a center, but his first 2 years in the league he played guard. So you could maybe have him compete at a couple different spots.
Yeah, and so he could give you some interior depth as well across the line.
Yeah, that's the thing. The O-line is so depleted.
Starting center.
Yeah, and that's assuming we get Tom back, by week 1, which they said, but you never know. And man, I mean, just looking at the O-line is not filling me with warm, fuzzy feelings right now. So yeah, definitely. I agree. I think Schlottman would be a good bet. And I wouldn't be surprised if we sign a few more guys because you have one more O-lineman that you're looking at, right?
Well, I was thinking about Tevin Jenkins, a guy we know.
I mean, we already talked about kind of injury-prone guys who can come and be a backup, So Tevin Jenkins completely fits in that mold.
He's expected to get a little bit more, like 13 million. He did manage to play 16 games.
Yeah, he actually got through a whole season last year.
He got it in mortgage, but he had like the first half of the year, he was not playing many snaps. So his total snap count is actually only like half of his career high for snap count. Is like, but he didn't miss any games. He was 12th among guards in this blocking metric, and it was good both pass and run blocking. For comparison, Banks was 81st. And Belton was 79th out of 103 qualifying guards. Now Banks people say he looked better as the year went on. From week 7 on, he was 57th. Yeah. It was better than 81st.
Better than 81st. Still not great. About average.
But Jenkins has never played more than 738 snaps, but he didn't miss any. I don't think he missed any games with injury this year. So he might be.
But the question is, are you paying him for his one healthy? That's the thing, because I think
the ceiling is high for Jenkins. I think.
The thing with Barch is I think you're getting a discount for the fact that he's missed so many games. I worry with Jenkins that you are essentially not getting the discount, but you're paying because he had one healthy year, and then he's gonna. I mean, statistically, he's had more years where he's missed a big chunk of the game, and it's been like back injuries for him too, which like is kind of scary.
Yeah, and I remember liking him in the draft
coming out of Oklahoma State, I think it was. Yeah, I remember that because and he was projected to go like kind of high, and then he fell to the second round because of like the injury issues, and then just wasn't able to stay healthy for Chicago, and then stayed healthy this past year for Cleveland. But you just wonder like, is that the outlier? But I 100% agree that for him, it's just like I think he might not be worth that much money. Like if he was going to make like $4 or $5 million, I think that would be like a definitely like someone I take a look at. I think he might just be too expensive for what he is, because he is pretty good when he plays. Just I don't know if you can spend that much money on a guy for most of the years of his career has missed like such vast chunks of time. But I see what you're saying. I think it could be worth a flyer.
Yeah, it might be a little expensive flyer.
That's the question is like, is it worth it that much?
It's a little boom bust. I think it could. He could if he's hurt, you could get nothing when you need it, or he could be like
Ricky Bobby,
a major improvement on anybody in your interior offensive line.
And Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last. You know, if the goal is to win a Super Bowl, you kind of need to get a little bit lucky and maybe, you know, being able to, because I think if Tevin Jenkins...
You know what the teams get lucky in for making the Super Bowl?
Health.
Yep.
And, well, I was going to say, like if he wasn't injury prone, he wouldn't be available. Like, that's just kind of the fact of the matter. So, you know, otherwise you wouldn't be able to sign him. So, like, there's always reasons for that thing.
And he's had a little bit of an edge to him. He's coming out of college,
he's got some nasty to him, which we don't really necessarily have.
You use a little bit of somebody, knocking somebody over for.
Yeah, well, we have that with Belton. I want Belton to keep playing like a little more angry than he did last year. Any other thoughts on the free agent class, just as a whole? I do feel like there's just not a whole lot there. I know a lot of people would probably be disappointed. I wouldn't be that disappointed if Green Bay kind of holds tight in free agency and doesn't do that much, just because I feel like I know we talked about the spot track like estimations for what players are going to get paid, but I just think given the fact that the class is so shallow, I think some guys are going to get vastly overpaid.
Yeah, there are teams that have a lot more or create a lot more cap space than the Packers, though. We know the Packers can create like 50-60 million if they need to without that much difficulty, even though they're over now. There are other corner possibilities that I kind of like as well. Some of them are a little older, like Jalen Watson.
Watson's going to get – he's going to get – I like Brown, but Watson's going to get paid. Watson's going to get paid a lot of money. I think he's generally considered to be the top corner on the market. Any thoughts on a Trevon Diggs reunion?
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. Because the main thing was just like it was too much money, to keep him.
He was never going to be on that contract.
Yeah,
and nobody expected. It was actually generally expected to go make it to
clear waivers. Yeah,
because this contract was so exorbitantly high, and so everybody was kind of surprised, including me, that the Packers
$500,000 for one snap.
And so the one thing that makes me a little bit less think it's less likely. I thought there was a chance that they would okay. We all knew that you weren't going to stay on this contract, but I'm surprised they cut him so quickly.
Yeah,
they didn't have
maybe they were doing him a solid. Yeah, it was kind of like, hey,
and so he was 64th in He's actually in run score is better than his coverage score.
I mean, he had a bad year. Like that. Yeah. That just is what it is. Like he was coming off. That's the reason the Cowboys cut him, is because he wasn't playing very well.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you.
It might be worth bringing him back and seeing if he can recover anything. Because he had some bad injuries.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it takes multiple years to recover from those.
Yeah. I was going to ask you one last thing. If you had to put 50-50, 60-40 odds of Sean Ryan coming back versus odds of different guy being assigned to start at center, what would you put it at? So first number is the odds that Sean Ryan is re-signed and he's going to be your starting center. And the second number is odds they sign a different starting center.
I think Ryan is the most likely. Is he more likely than the field?
That's what I'm saying. More likely. What's him versus other free agent starting center?
I think he's more likely than other free agents. Okay. But what about draft picks?
Of course, leave that out for now, I suppose.
Okay. And
or leave draft picks and Monk out for now.
Monk graded very well. He only had 57 snaps, but he graded really well over those small number of snaps.
He's just so small. I would be surprised if he's the starting
I don't
center.
think it's what they're looking for anymore.
No, it doesn't seem to be.
We can talk about that too, about how much
60-40.
they've screwed themselves with their change in philosophy.
The change in philosophy has not worked out. The flatly, they've been worse at drafting O-linemen under this new philosophy than they were before. In fact, their best lineman is a guy that they drafted from the old philosophy.
Right. They would pick him now.
Exactly.
He's the rest. And this is the thing that drives me nuts. They're doing all this. They want these big hulking linemen now, so they can be better
at run blocking,
running. And Tom is by far their best run blocker, as well as their best pass protector.
And none of these big guys can block for the run. They just they can't get any push. They're big for no reason. They are big for no reason. But anyway, I think we should wrap up here because we're getting a little long. This has been our talking about Rich Bisaccia and free agent preview. Talking about players that could maybe help the Packers compete in 2026. Hopefully, maybe a couple additions on the margins here can help Green Bay kind of round out the roster that has a little bit of cracks in it right now. But that's what free agency is for. If you like what you heard, subscribe, whether that's Apple, Spotify, YouTube, tell a friend, follow us on Blue Sky at Father Son Packer. We'll be doing an episode every single week for the rest of the year, talking about free agency, talking about the combine in a week. I think it's a week now. The time's kind of flying right now. Talking about the draft, talking about minicamp, talking about OTAs, et cetera, et cetera. So don't turn that dial. But thank you again for listening. And until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.